Before we dive in, this week's episode is brought to you by my free cheat sheet, 30 Top Tips to Find Time to Write. In this guide, I give you 30 ways that you can find time to write in the small gaps that appear between the various errands and tasks and responsibilities that you have in your day-to-day life. Now, you might be thinking that you don't have any time to spare, but I can guarantee these top tips will give you writing time you didn't think you had. If you thought writing always involved a pen and paper or a keyboard, think again. If you thought you needed at least an hour at a time to write your manuscript, I help you reframe that. You won't be disappointed. Get your free copy of 30 Top Tips to Find Time to Write by going to emmadesi.com/30 top tips. Okay, let's dive in to today's episode. Brian Livingston was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia in the US. He earned his BA in history at Clemson University before setting off to thru-hike the Appalachian Trail in 2013, where he earned his trail name Mr. Frodo. After his thru-hike, he started law school at Washington and Lee University School of Law, graduating in 2016. And since 2016, he has worked as a trial attorney in South Carolina. He currently resides in Charleston, South Carolina, with his wife, Olivia, and black lab, Maddux. His debut novel, The Habits of Squirrels, is inspired by his experiences and encounters on the Appalachian Trail. Do dig into our conversation today, because Brian published his first novel this year, so it's very, very fresh to him. Just what's involved in writing that first novel whilst holding down a very strenuous day job. So he talks about how he did that. He talks about the self-publishing route that he opted to take and what that experience was like, and how he got his book to publication standard, how he found his editor, how he found his book cover designer, which is beautiful, by the way, so do check it out. It was great to talk to him because he gives lots of inspiration, and he does give some very practical advice on how to get through those difficult times when it feels like you're writing and writing, you're getting tired, you're getting fed up with the book that you're trying to put together. And he gives practical tips on how you can find a way to keep going, to dig in and get to the end, because as he has proved, it's well worth doing. You will appreciate it at the end. And in fact, as he says, when you finally hold that book in your hands, there is no greater feeling, and that alone makes it so worth doing. So do listen to our conversation and do go and buy the book. It's a great book, and I have no doubt you will enjoy it. So yeah, get listening. Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation about your fabulous debut novel.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me on.
Not a problem. So congratulations on that, by the way, because really is a huge achievement. And I think when we write our first novel, we're just so pleased to get it done and get it out there that we don't always take a moment to actually realize what it is that we've done. You're now kind of like in the 1% of people who want to write a novel, not just to finish that first draft, but actually to publish it as well. So did you celebrate when you finished? Did you take a moment to appreciate what you'd done?
I think I picked up a couple of steaks and maybe had a couple of glasses of bourbon, but nothing too big. There's, especially when you sort of go indie, there's not really that big moment. You kind of just, you hit save that final time and just start on to the next task. So it's kind of anticlimactic. I mean, it's awesome. And then I definitely have those moments where I'm like, hey, I wrote a novel and I'm spending my time getting it out there. And that's amazing.
Yeah.
But, it's not like you're standing on top of the mountain, shaking your fists.
No, but but it's important to recognize, I think. So hopefully you will maybe finish our conversation and go and have a little, yeah, I did that. That was good.
Yeah.
But tell us about your journey to writing. So this is your debut. You've not always been a writer. You've been in the corporate world. So how did this come about?
I've always had sort of writing fiction on the brain. It's always been something that I thought I might have an interest in. I never really fully pursued it. I think I took one creative writing class in high school, and then like one additional one late in college when you're just sort of prodding around for classes and looking for ways to fill the days without actually having to work. And then, I thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2013, right after I graduated from college. And, that's such a big moment and such a big experience. And there's so much transformation and interesting sort of little moments and anecdotes from it, that it's really, it lends itself to being pulled from for fiction, and just drawing on to sort of exaggerate and play with and just sort of see where it goes. After I thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail, I went to law school, and there's a lot of focus on writing. A lot of people call being a lawyer being a professional writer. So I graduated, and I was working as an attorney, and it just sort of felt right to sort of start putting stuff to page. So I started sort of prodding around on different aspects of the trail and seeing how I wanted to enter that world. And eventually I met up with Gabe Jenkins and decided to spend some time with him and sort of see how his journey went.
Okay. So this was always at the back of your head. You knew that this was the story in some way, shape or form that you were called to write, that this would be the one that would get you there.
Yeah, definitely something set, on the Appalachian Trail, or in what happened in the Habits of the Squirrels, which is the name of the novel. A fictionalized Appalachian Trail that sort of, provided more of a playground, you were tied to specific geographic locations and towns and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we'll come to that in a minute, but tell me what took you to do the thru-hike to the Appalachian Trail.
I was young. I was looking for adventure. It starts about an hour and a half from my childhood home. So, mommy and daddy could drop me off. And if need be, it didn't come to this, they could pick me up. And I had some familiarity with it. Just, one of my brother-in-laws had done it before. And I was able to sort of use him as a resource. And then there's that big romantic, I'm going to start walking in one direction and go really far. And along the way, I'm going to see mountains and animals and different little small towns and encounter all those amazing people that are out there hiking the trail. That really drew me to it. I'd certainly never done anything like this beforehand. Mm-hmm. So, I just wanted to sort of, get out there and sort of see the world, see a different part of the world, and then obviously learn more about myself.
Yeah. And so, and learn more about yourself. I guess that's the thing. When someone takes on a big project like that, there's usually something that really spurs them on. To mind comes, Cheryl Strayed's memoir, and also Bill Bryson's memoir as well, that there's been something happening. And did you say that you did it just before you went to college? So maybe that was
just before law school. Yeah.
Okay. So life was about to change again. And so.
Yeah, definitely a big transitional moment.
Okay, cool. And what is the difference? Because I'm not a hiker, I have to admit. What is the difference then between a thru-hike and just, climbing, going up a mountain, doing a normal hike?
Well, the Appalachian Trail is about 2,200 miles. So it's a matter of, I guess, degree. It's a very long trail. It is, broken up perhaps into like a bunch of 4-day hikes, because you go in and out of town to get new food, shower, get into hotels, and do all that. It's just a matter of degree. In this case, a very, very large degree between going out and doing a mountain or two, or spending a weekend in the woods. Okay.
And so how long did it take you to do the hike?
144 days, just under 5 months.
Yeah. Okay. That. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure you cover this in the book, or your character covers this in the novel. But I imagine there were times in that 5 months that you thought, "Why am I doing this? Have I proved enough now? I'm going to just stop."
Yeah, it's a weird mental thing. It's kind of. I think that it's maybe a little different than hitting the wall in a marathon or something like that. But that point about maybe 3/4 or 2/3 of the way through where you've been out there a really long time, and then you still have a really long time to go. And, the novelty's worn off, and, you start off sort of bright eyed and like, yeah, everything's an adventure and amazing. And then, 3/4 of the way, like, my feet hurt and my knees hurt and it's hot and I want to sleep in a bed and I still have 2 months to go. Like, what are we doing out here? That was a mentally tough time. A lot of people quit in that time, and you start to sort of get fed up with the just the downsides of sleeping outside and spending your days in the woods. Mm-hmm. And like I said, like all the novelty is worn off of sleeping outside and spending your days in the woods.
And so what was it for you that made you carry on and not give up at that point?
Little changes to my daily routine helped a lot. The mosquitoes got real bad at that point, because at that point it was pretty much full summer. So the buzzing started to kind of get in your head and drive you crazy. So I started listening to music, put in headphones for the first time, started walking with people during the day. I'd always camped with people, but like during the day, I'd like to walk alone. After 3 months, I got tired of that. So I started walking with people, and, just some luck. My sister lived where we were at that time, so she took us in for a night or two, and we slept in a bed and showered and sort of had familiar confines. And then just being stubborn. I mean, just being set in one direction for a long time makes it really hard to, break off and do something else. And it's not like I had other tasks that I needed to get to. Mm-hmm. I sort of had law school looming at the end of it, but that's a set date. It's not like if I quit the trail, I could start earlier. So just not having a lot to go home to, and then having a hard head.
Well, it's not done you any disservice, certainly.
Yeah.
But I love what you mentioned there about, one of the things that kept you going was changes in those daily routines. And I think now, as a writer as well, that's a really, we can apply that to our writing, I think. So if anybody is sort of listening and they're bored with their book or getting fed up with the writing routine that they've got, then just tweak it a little bit. What can you change, add in, take out that might just freshen it up for you so you can keep going? If it works for hiking, it can very well work for writing as well.
Yeah, all the little tricks to keep yourself going when you don't want to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the book is called The Habits of Squirrels, which is just such a brilliant title. I mean, it already grabbed me. And it's been described by one reviewer as a humorous and exciting, yet introspective and sensitive take on the adventure novel. So what did draw you to write it as a fiction piece rather than as a memoir?
You mentioned Cheryl Strayed earlier, and she, for her memoir, which is wonderful, she had like a very interesting and complex and, dark backstory. And then she was sort of, I don't want to simplify her work, but, walking away from that, sort of clearing that out of her system and, coming to process all that. Cards on the table, I'm not sure that my personal story could support its own memoir at this point in my life. But, honestly, more so, it seemed more fun to write fiction. It seemed like a different angle. There's a lot of Appalachian Trail memoirs out there, ranging from, sort of Cheryl Strayed, Bill Bryson level to some more unfortunate. And I just thought that, creating my own world, getting to play with the characters, sort of taking things from the Appalachian Trail and sort of twisting them or blowing them up, seemed like a lot more fun. And you could structure stuff into sort of a more narratively pleasing structure, and make it so that it flowed better. And a lot of memoirs struggle with just being like day by day sort of hiking accounts. I went from here to here, I hurt my foot here, I drank water here, the water here wasn't very good, here's a funny joke next day. So I thought it'd be more fun. And I think I was right. I really enjoyed spending time with the characters that sort of sprang up as I did this.
And so did you base your protagonist on yourself? I mean, did you keep that bit sort of autobiographical, or did you come up with somebody entirely new so that you could have a little bit of distance from the story and be more objective about it?
That's something I've sort of learned along the way. When I first started writing a book about hiking, Um, the the book's still written in first person, but the first person sort of narrator was just like a 24-year-old guy hiking the Appalachian Trail or hiking the Great Eastern Trail. And I was like, well, that's just me. And I got about 15, maybe 20,000 words into that. And I was like, this isn't going anywhere. I don't enjoy this. You know, this seems like just like a lazy dodge on a memoir. And so I sort of scrapped that and I went back in. I started thinking about people that I met on the Appalachian Trail and what would be an interesting way to enter that world. And, you know, my protagonist is Gabe Jenkins. He's a retired mailman. And on the Appalachian Trail, I did meet a retired mailman who I spent a couple nights with. The Appalachian Trail, the real figure was had a great attitude and was like so happy to be out there. He had the Appalachian Trail on his bucket list for, 30 years. And I met him on a snowy, terrible day and I found him and I was miserable and he was smiling and he sort of talked me back to health. So I liked that as the basis. And then as I spent more time with, the actual Gabe Jenkins, he was actually, didn't share that enthusiasm at the beginning. So, the real life character, the real life person sort of set the benchmark or the goal for Gabe Jenkins to make his development.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because yes, of course your character needs to get somewhere. And I did really love the idea that this is how he discovers, it feels like that it's quite it's about his internal journey more than the action of what necessarily happens on the trail and him discovering, okay, what kind of man do I want to be? What kind of father, husband, friend do I want to be? And so it sounds like, yeah, you've given him this great arc to go from being perhaps how you felt at 24 when you met the real postman to turning the character then becoming the energy of that postman that you met in real life.
Yeah, of course. I think that's a really nice way to put it. If Gabe Jenkins started off like that postman, then he wouldn't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
It'd just be 144 days of smiles.
You could have dragged him down, maybe.
Yeah.
Had the arc the other way.
Yeah.
So I imagine lots and lots of funny things happened, particularly with the people that you would have met and what pulls all of these people to come and do this very, very big adventure. But what's been some of maybe a favorite story that you've enjoyed and perhaps you've included in the novel?
I tried to capture like the small moments with animals. We have a lot of weird moments with animals, like stories, or I don't know if it qualifies as a story, but just like squirrels or birds trying to get away from you and they keep running down the trail instead of going side to side. So you just keep bothering the same bird and it just gets progressively angrier and chirping more and more until eventually it sort of figures out that right and left are a thing and goes that way. Tried to capture that aspect of it, just sort of the silly aspect of it. My favorite story from the trail is we were in New York. We were near New York City, and we were just happened to be sort of walking by a road. There were two of us, and a car stopped. It was like, hey, I'm involved with the trail. I helped clean some of the shelters. Would you like to come to my house and shower? And because it was before COVID and because we were young, we're like, yeah, obviously we want to do that. We haven't showered in days. So we go and shower and I get out of the shower and they had decided to go into New York City. The guy who was letting us shower was going to drive us to the train. On the way to the train, he tells us about entering the lottery for Broadway shows. And you can go and put your name in a hat. And for like $20, if you win, you get front row Broadway tickets.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it's a good system, especially if you have the luck of the Appalachian Trail. So, we did that and we won. And we woke up that day sort of sleeping on the floor of a shelter that we ended up front row at a Broadway show, sort of wearing that guy's borrowed clothes because all of our clothes were too dirty. That was like one of those fun sort of tangents that you'd never expect when you set off to hike through the woods that you'd end up, front row at Wicked.
Yeah. Oh, you got to see Wicked as well.
Yeah,
nice one.
Yeah, we sang the songs for the rest of the hike too. It was amazing.
So I didn't realize that the trail would incorporate New York City. That feels like a long way away from the woods and the mountains and the outdoor nature.
Yeah, it was overwhelming. I think it came within like 30 miles. And so just whatever commuter train we were able to get on was able to take us in.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. As you say, just this lovely detour into one of the most exciting cities in the world. My goodness.
Yeah. And suddenly just having all sorts of food options at your hands.
Yes. Yeah. So how did you manage with the food? What did you use for food? And did that get very tedious as well?
I'd probably do it differently now that I'm a little older, but at the time, I pretty much just ate like a 5-year-old. I ate a lot of ramen, like, peanut butter tortillas. I would wake up and eat. It was always, I think, s'more Pop-Tarts were what I ate. And then, maybe some like canned tuna or even some Spam at different times. And
Anything you could carry sort of thing.
yeah, instant mashed potatoes, all that, all the dehydrated stuff. And I loved it. I probably should have gotten more sick of it. I don't think I've touched a Pop-Tart since I've hiked the Appalachian Trail, but I still eat ramen and every now and then instant mashed potatoes and all that.
Well, life is certainly, you've moved a long way away from that, the kind of student days now. And you as you say, you're a defense attorney. But you've stepped away from that, I believe. You've stepped away from that career for the moment anyway, to focus on your book. So a very brave move, pre-publication. Well, I'm assuming you've not regretted it because you've written and published your book, but did you have any kind of backup plan, or did you know that you could return to corporate if you needed to?
I don't know that I had a backup plan. I just, I'm starting a new job with REI, the big outfitter, in a couple of weeks, next week. So, I definitely knew that, it was too big a move or maybe too ambitious to think that right away my self-published book was going to be enough to sustain myself. But I wanted enough time during the day and enough energy during the day to be able to do stuff like this and to be able to publicize my book and market the book the right way and get it out there and really enjoy this experience and make sure that I was doing it efficiently and effectively. And I really did not enjoy being a defense attorney, and I didn't want that to be the thing that kept me from being able to do all this. And I knew that I would always sort of regret that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I do think that's really brave because there are a lot of aspiring writers out there who perhaps are in a similar position in that they are in a job they don't enjoy, they don't love, but the security of that paycheck coming in is enough to stop them from pursuing their dream. And that fear of, what if this doesn't work out? What if I don't finish the book? And there's also then I guess for you, you seem like someone who will rise to a challenge, but I suppose there are others then who would fear that they wouldn't live up to that challenge, and they would feel like a failure if they hadn't, if they didn't manage to at least finish that first draft or at least get towards a pitching or publishing stage. Was that something that you worried about, or did you feel pretty confident? No, if I give myself the space and time, I know I'll finish it.
I was pretty lucky. I'm married. My wife is also an attorney. She's so there's some financial stability there. And then she was also hugely supportive of the whole endeavor, with parameters and reasonable, very friendly parameters, but parameters. And I definitely had the sleepless nights, especially shortly after sort of making the big transition. Just like, what have I done here? I've spent 8 years building this attorney career, and I just sort of stepped out on it. It's tough, and it's a hard thing to balance and hard thing to measure, personally, like what works for you, what level of comfort you want, and then what risk you're willing to take for the book. At the point that I stepped away, I was holding a physical copy of my book, and I was starting to set up sort of, public speaking stuff and trying to reach out to people and, set up stuff like this and build sort of a social media presence.
Okay.
And I was just underwater. And I knew that sort of something had to give. And I was getting more and more fed up with, spending 10 hours a day as a defense attorney and then trying to come home and fit some of this into the margins. And I guess the scales finally tilted, and I was like, all right, well, we're gonna push hard on this, and then we're gonna see where that road takes us. And it seems like it's going well. It seems like it's taken me to happy spots so far.
Yeah, it certainly does. So that's really interesting. So as well as doing this very full-time job, you wrote the novel in your spare time, kind of in the evenings or the weekends. Is that how you did it?
Yeah. Woke up early every morning and wrote before work. When I really got into the meat of it, I would start writing after work, and a lot of writing on the weekends. And then, trying, because I went through the editor process and the querying process and all of that while still working, just fitting it on the margins.
And that was because this is something, it's something that a lot of my audience really, really struggle with, is finding this time in and around a busy job or maybe caring responsibilities. At the time, so I know that it's been a good trade-off. Like, I can see now that you've finished the book, you've published the book, it's going well, you've had some amazing reviews from people. That's been very worthwhile. But at the time when you were doing it, did you always feel that as optimistic? Were there darker times when you thought, why am I doing this? I'm exhausted. I'm having to get up early. I just want to sort of see if you can offer any encouragement to people who might be not sure if the trade-off will be worth it and are a bit tentative to start changing their routine and their habit. I just wonder if you could speak into that a little bit, just to encourage people.
Well, I'll say, for encouragement, holding a copy of your own book, however it came to be, is amazing. I printed my first drafts off at just like a UPS store or a FedEx store, just held a stack of 200 papers that were spiral bound, and that was amazing. And I stood there smiling, and all the clerks sort of looked at me like I was losing my mind. But for the day-to-day inspiration, oh man, it comes and goes. Some days you get up and writing is exactly what you want to do, and those are awesome days, and the story flows, and it sort of feels like you're just typing down something that you're watching. And then there's those days, usually later in the week for me, after you've gotten up at 5 every day and written, and then worked, and then written again, where you don't, like, everything sucks and you don't want to spend time with your characters, and it seems like they're just sitting on a rock looking at you, and there's nothing to do and there's nothing to talk to them about. It's sort of similar to what I did on the trail, just little changes to the routine, maybe treating yourself while you write. Like having a glass of bourbon or a glass of wine, maybe taking a night off. It's not the end of the world, but just doing those little things to keep your feet moving and make it seem like not such a chore to sit down there and do it. Because stopping is really dangerous. Taking to extended time off and breaking whatever routine you've built. Once you stop getting up at 5, maybe you don't want to do that anymore. Maybe you've realized how awesome it is to sleep back in and instead of dragging yourself to your laptop. So yeah, just little changes to routine. Maybe change what you eat, change what you drink more tea, drink something alcoholic, drink, something fun to the extent that exists. And just a little tiny motivations to kind of get you through the little micro problems that arise as you write a novel.
Yeah. Because I think when we're starting out, particularly if we're writing our first novel, we have a very romantic image in our head of what it is to be a writer. But what you're talking about there is the work of being a writer, and you have to show up for it. And it's little incremental steps that you take every day or every week that get you to that finish line. And for you, as you were going through that, did you have a way of measuring it? So, for example, did you say, okay, I'm going to write for this length of time each day, or did you have a word count that you wanted to hit each day? How did you measure that for yourself?
I usually shot for about 1,500 words. and then I had nice little time increments that were just sort of allotted to me. You know, if I woke up at 5, I could write for about an hour and a half before work. And then once I got home from work and sort of cooked dinner and walked the dog and did all the other little duties, I could usually carve out sort of another hour and a half. So, you know, I think the 1500 was more trying to set a goal so that I used those 3 hours efficiently and didn't just stare at Twitter or whatever all day. But yeah, so it was nice. I think Stephen King touches on this and on writing. Like, it's easier to write if you know there's sort of a backboard that's going to be the drop. When you know that you have another responsibility that's coming up, it makes it easier rather than just like sitting down at 8 a.m. like, all right, I'm writing all day. We got this. It's the only thing to do today, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? You know, I've heard the phrase, if you want something done, ask a busy person, because then you know that you've just got to get stuff done. You don't have time to worry about it, procrastinate about it. Chop, 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 got to get stuff done. So knowing that, I guess, that you've got that 10-hour chunk in the day where you've got to go to the paid work, okay, maximize the 3 hours that you've got around that.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I've never thought of it that way, but yeah.
So yes, thank you for that. Thanks for giving some words of encouragement to our listeners. So you, like me, are independently published. What did you enjoy that process, or are you enjoying that process of being a self-published author? And what have you found to be the fun bits about it, and what have you discovered to be the kind of tougher bits about it?
Oh man, I have loved this process. I came to it very reluctantly. You know, I went through the querying process and tried very hard to get traditionally published either by a large or small house, and then just sort of was like, all right, well, we're gonna self-publish. But no, I really enjoyed it. I found an editor on Readsy.com who was wonderful to work with and made the book better. And, you know, listened to me and what I was trying to do, and then had his own ideas about how to finish it and how to sort of, you know, really hit the themes of the novel. And then also, you know, we were chatting before we recorded, finding my own graphic artist, sort of going through a lot of graphic artist catalogs and seeing like other covers that they had done. And, you know, just picking the one that was right for me, and then just sort of having that back and forth about how we want the book to look and how, you know, that cover is gonna come out. And I think it came out wonderfully, which is really nice. It's a very visual thing when you're holding a book that's attractive to you and you think it just you know, lights up each day. And
it is a beautiful cover. It really is gorgeous. They did a great job.
Yeah. And I think, you know, you hear a lot that's like, you know, half the battle of getting to someone to buy the book is having a beautiful cover. And I sort of lucked out on that. And then just doing stuff like this, you know, I guess probably 6 months ago now, I didn't have any social media. And, you know, I've been sort of building a brand. It would have seemed lunacy for me to go out and be on podcasts and talk to people and try and say my words real good. But I've enjoyed doing it. I've done it a fair bit, setting up public speaking stuff. And I've just met so many great, enthusiastic people. I've become so much more involved in sort of the hiking world and the writing world, and just sort of building a presence in, you know, in a place that I wanted to be, which, you know, when I'm going to keep taking pot shots at being a defense attorney here, but which very rarely when I was a defense attorney did I find myself somewhere I wanted to be talking about something that I was interested in. And, you know, now I get to do that with some regularity. Yeah. So I've just been really blessed and really enjoyed this process.
So when you become an indie author, in fact, even if you become a traditionally published author, you become a business. And with every business, there's those highs like you've just been mentioning. But then there's also those challenges of being an entrepreneur and being a business owner. So what have you discovered that is perhaps something that is challenging that you hadn't expected about being a business owner, about being an authorpreneur, as we're described? Or have you genuinely not come across any downsides yet?
It's a couple things, a lot of unreturned emails and unreturned phone calls as you try and reach out to independent bookstores or magazines or just, you know, anybody. trying to get people to take notice of the book and trying to give myself a chance to go out and talk about the book and sort of shove it down people's throats. And it's, similar to querying agents in that regard. It's just a lot of unreturned emails that you've put a fair amount of time into. Yeah. And, it can start to feel very, very lonely. And then especially being an indie author, you run into people like they ask what you do or like what you're up to. And you're like, oh, I'm writing a novel and I published it. It's like, oh, who published it? Well, me, I published it. It's like, is it available in bookstores? It's like, a couple. Is it available on Amazon? Yeah. It's just like any other book. It's like people look at you, like, all right, man, that's neat. That's a cute thing that you're up to, which, for something that you've poured 4 years into, it's like, you just sort of try and bury it and not, lash out like you feel like doing. But,
but that's certainly a reality, isn't it? Of being, we know, because we're in the industry, that self-publishing, indie publishing is this amazing, amazing opportunity for us. But there are still many people who don't know that and don't see it, because it's still in its infancy. Kindle only came out in 2007, so it's still right at the beginning of this industry, and already we've seen such amazing growth. That is definitely a difficult part of it. And I remember Joanna Penn talking about that and how people would ask her that, would I have heard of your book? And it's like, well, there's over how many millions of books out there? Probably you've not heard of it, but it's, but it's,
and you still get those people. I think of them as like the mean dads from the 80s movies. Was like, an artist, you're an artist, you're trying to be an author. There's no money in that. Yes. And so you get some of that too.
Yeah, definitely that is still around, and there's many of us trying to disprove that or say it doesn't have to be that way for certain.
Yeah.
I wanted to just quickly ask you about the editor that you worked with. So I was curious about how long you worked together on the book, with the back and forth, and what that process was like.
Yeah. So I found him on Readsy. I sent him a little clip of the book, and he sent back that he was interested. It was probably, I think, maybe a 4-month process. Was sort of, I sent him the draft that I had at the time. He took the appropriate amount of time to read it. He sent me extensive notes, and we had a phone call about it, where he just sort of like recapped just like a rote recap that he wrote as he was reading it, and then another sort of synopsis of, what he thought was good, what he thought was bad, what he thought could be stronger, what he thought was missing. And so then I took maybe 6 weeks, maybe 2 months to sort of redraft and really digest that and get it moving again. And then we just sort of went through that process again. And I think we did like a brief third phone call. He was really generous with his time, but just sort of just honing in on, what the novel is about, and making sure that we highlight that instead of, sometimes you see movies or read books where like what it's about is sort of buried in there under other stuff, and sort of just bringing that to the forefront, and then making sure that it's all in service of that. And it's a wonderful process. He's been helpful beyond that too, just because he's a published author. So just guiding me through it and talking to me, just having someone return your phone calls and return your emails is so nice. And just advice about being an author in America.
It is nice to have someone on your team who is further along and understands it more and can just be that sounding board. So important.
Yeah.
So you mentioned there that he helped you kind of bring out what the story is really about. So I haven't asked you that yet. What is your story about? Do tell our listeners a little bit about it and why they should go and grab themselves a copy.
Yeah. So it follows Gabe Jenkins. He's a recently retired mailman from a small fictional town, and he's spent a long time in routine, and he's kind of gotten in his own head about how his life has proceeded and who's responsible for that and who made the decisions. So he's setting out on this thru-hike, and as he's going along, he's encountering the interesting people, the interesting animals, the interesting landscapes that sort of help him out or hinder him, and sort of using that, whether he's conscious of it or not, to sort of reassess how he spent his time, and what type of person he was, what type of decision maker he was, whether he was active or passive, and whether he's happy with the road he's taken. And just along that way, it goes into the relationship with his wife, and he sort of has an estranged son who lives along the trail that he meets further on down the trail. And it's kind of, like you said, the internal journey of just sort of him reshaping his perception of his time here on Earth.
I think it's something so many of us can relate to, and particularly in light of coming out of COVID and everything, and we're a time when a lot of people have reevaluated their life and the decisions that they've made. So very, very timely. I quickly want to ask you about the title, because it's such a great title, The Habits of Squirrels. Is that because you met a lot of squirrels along the way? Did you get to know some?
There's definitely a lot of squirrels along the Appalachian Trail. I was looking for a title, and I was looking for squirrels do play sort of a large role in the plot. Gabe Jenkins encounters a lot of squirrels on the Great Eastern Trail. It was during editing. I still didn't have the book properly titled, and I was going through sort of line by line, and I was using a book, Strunk and White's Style Guide or Guide to Style, and they had a bit, and I'm going to mess this up, but it was saying that I think for animals or species, you wouldn't say a squirrel's habits, you would say the habits of squirrels. And I saw that, and I thought about my novel, and I thought, well, we have it. There's the title. I don't think I'm ever going to beat that.
No, it's brilliant. Inspired.
It's another one where that we were talking about earlier. People kind of like look at you like you're crazy and kind of get a little snarky with like, oh, you wrote that squirrel book, right? The book about squirrels. I mean, it's not about squirrels. It has squirrels in it, but yes, that is me. I did write that book.
The squirrel book. No, I'd own that. Yeah, I wrote the squirrel book. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So lovely. So that's brilliant. But I always love to ask, what are you working on now? Have you got anything new sort of in the works that you can tell us about, or not?
Yeah. So I'm trying to keep up the nature theme. Writing about somebody venturing into sort of the swamps of southeastern United States, and where that takes them, and how it affects them and how they spend their life afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Well, some big wildlife there, I believe. Yeah,
big old alligators.
Well, Brian, where can our listeners find out more about you and your book?
Yeah, so I have my website, brianlivingstonbooks.com. You can buy the book there. You can learn more about me. You can reach out to me through the portal. On social media, I am on Instagram, which is probably where I'm most active, at Brian Livingston Books. I'm on Twitter at Livingston Books. I am on Facebook, author Brian Livingston. And then, the book's available pretty much anywhere books are sold online. You can get it through your local independent store's website, usually, because they all back up to indiebound.org, which is a wonderful organization. And my book is available there. And then, much less exciting, it is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the big guys.
The usual guys. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll be sure to link to some of those, if not every single one, but I will definitely let people know where they can find it. Yeah. Brian, thank you so much for your time today. I've loved learning about the habits of squirrels, and I wish you all the luck.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. I always love talking about it, meeting new people.
If you're a first-time novelist who is struggling to either finish your novel or get those revisions to where you want them to be, then I've got just the thing for you. I have a small group coaching program which runs over 12 months, and over the course of that program I will help you fix those plot problems that you've been struggling with. I'll help you get under the surface of your characters so you really get to know them and what's driving them. And crucially for you, I give you that self self-belief that you need to get you through the roller coaster that is writing a novel, so that you can carry on, get to the end, and get your book, your story out into the world so it can change people's lives. If that sounds good to you, if that is something that you'd be interested in doing, I know I can help you get to where you want to be. So book a call with me. Let's have a chat and see if we are a good fit for each other. If you're interested in doing that, then go to emmadesi.com/story builder. I look forward to chatting. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found that helpful and inspirational. Now, don't forget to come on over to Facebook and join my group, Turning Readers into Writers. It is especially for you if you are a beginner writer who is looking to write their first novel. If you join the group, you will also find a free cheat sheet there called 3 Secret Hacks to Write with Consistency. So go to emmadesi.com/turning readers into writers, hit join. Can't wait to see you in there. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.